and greetings from Chicagoland. I'm Munira Zahabi, the Niche Navigator, and welcome to Munira's Musings. I'm your host, podcaster, author, coach, and international speaker. Each week, I bring you insightful conversations with extraordinary individuals who share their unique perspectives and stories. Join me on this captivating journey as we explore new ideas and inspirations. Now, let's dive into today's episode with our special guest.
Greetings from Chicagoland. Welcome to Munira's Musings with a new guest, with a new niche. Our guest today is Tanya Truster. Welcome, Tanya, to Munira's Musings.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome. You are joining us from Missouri, the state?
Yes. Go Chiefs.
That's awesome. So this is good. We are on Central Time. You didn't have to wake early. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Munira's Musings, where we explore the unique stories of our incredible guests. Each episode is designed not only to highlight their journey, but also to uncover valuable insights where we can all learn from each other. Through these experiences, we aim to inspire, educate, and empower you in your own path. So sit back, tune in, and let's dive into this conversation. We bring you these because we want to showcase our speakers, and two, we also want to share their stories. So, Tanya, welcome to Munira's Musings. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a mother and a wife and grandmother. Actually, I go by Gigi because my grandsons call me Gigi. And I was an educator for 34 years, and I retired this school year will be my fourth year in retirement. So, so I've been enjoying that part of my life and season. I went into the business sector after, retiring from education, and and God has moved me in a different direction. And so I am now starting to be an author and a speaker, and I'm really enjoying this process. It's been a lot. It's been a huge learning curve for me. And when you talk about niche, this is kind of where I feel like my niche has led me with part of my teaching as well as, my education.
So you say you're retired, but you're not retired.
But I'm not retired.
You just retired from one job to start another, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. Because, when I thought about, I was eligible for retirement, and I've loved my years of teaching in the education spectrum and the students I had. So you're right. I felt too young, even though I was eligible. And I thought, I do want to do something different, even though I loved education. And so I thought, this is my opportunity. Since I'm eligible, I'm going to take retirement, and I'm going to see what other roads there are to lead me down, what other paths there are to lead me down, I guess I should say. And I wasn't sure what that was going to be, to be honest, but I knew I felt too young to stop working totally, and I have too much energy to stop working totally. Plus, I want to keep my brain sharp and just grow and learn, because there's so much more out there in the world to learn and grow from. And so I was excited about this new journey, and again, I had no idea what I wanted to do or from my beliefs where God was going to lead me. And so it's been an interesting journey, but I'm excited and I'm loving everything that I'm doing.
This is amazing. So let's go back. Educator, what kind of education were you imparting?
Yeah, I was in public school system, and basically almost about half and half, not quite, but pretty much. Half of my career, the first part of my career, I was in the elementary education side of school, if you will. I taught 3rd through 6th grade in various years, right? Not all at one time, but various years. And then I made the switch to middle school, and then more than the last half of my career, I was in 7th grade language arts in middle school. And so that's what I taught.
So what can you tell people who are getting into the education system, and you've done this for 35 years, and you stuck with it? Most people like me who have no patience don't want to do this. I was a teacher back home, and I came here. The story changed a little bit because over there we had more control over classrooms. Here, the children and the parents were in control, so I couldn't do it, and I just never touched that field. But how did you handle the students?
And that's a great question. And, a lot of it's the same. It's consistent no matter where you are, no matter what demographics you're teaching in. But I think also some of it can lend itself to depending on the niche, if you will, that you're in, what I mean by that is, the demographics that you're teaching, because there's inter-school systems, there's suburban systems, and there's all different school systems. And I think you might find different situations that you're put in as a teacher and or parent or student within those various elements. I was in a suburban school district, and so We had a lot of support from the parents in that school district. And so I didn't have some of the challenges that other educators may have in school systems where maybe the parents aren't as supportive or as engaged with their students and with their children. And so my experience may be different than other experiences, but what I can tell you is everyone in every school system and every parent and every child needs a good teacher, needs a good educator. Because I know there are situations where teachers have gotten burnt out because they haven't had that support, or they haven't had that, the exchange and the relationship that they need to have with the children as far as the respect level goes. And so I feel like those kids and those families still need those good educators. So I think it's important that everyone feels that that's their niche. It's not for everyone, right? Like you said, it's not for everyone. But those that are called to be educators, I think that they need to try and stick with it as much as they can. And I know it's hard because we get piled on a lot of stuff. So
Yeah. So whenever I talk about teachers, they hold a special place in my heart because teachers make a difference. So for us, for me especially, we were taught that the first thing you learn from is your parents, and the second thing you learn is from your teachers. And there are some teachers even today that have made a very great impact on my life that I think about them all the time. I come from East Africa, so I haven't been able to connect with them. Maybe they're not on social media or anything, but I think of them and how they shaped my life because they did. And so thank you so much for the service you do, and amazing. So now let's get into your niche. You've gone from retirement to another segment in your life, and 4 years later, you decided to write a book. So how does that go about?
Right, I know. Still sometimes surprises me when you say you've written a book. I think, oh gosh, I have. I feel like I can officially say that I'm a published author, and I know I can, but it seems odd to say those words about myself and describe myself in that way, because I never dreamt of that being my path. Years and years and years ago, I thought about writing a children's book. It just never came to fruition. Life's busy, you're raising kids, you're working, you're doing all the things, and so it just never came to fruition. And the irony in the situation is that I thought about writing a children's book, right? And I'm saying that for a reason, because I'm going to get back to that here in a second. But the first book I actually wrote and published, and I just did it this last March, was this book right here, God's Graceful Guidance. And so what this book is, this is a resource book. And what I've done is, over the years of all my studies, I'm not a Bible scholar. I've never been to seminary, none of those things. I've just done my own personal learning, as well as gone to church and gone to different various Bible studies. I just learned. It was a sponge. I just soaked in everything that I could take in. And this was later in life because I hadn't really done that Bible study before in my life. So what I did was I decided to put the topics that I've been studying into a book. So this is basically a themed-based book, and there's 15 different topics in it. You can kind of see it here. I don't know if you can see it there or not, but there's 15 different topics dealing with different emotions that we have, and some of them were just subject matters that I was interested in. Well, over the years of my study, I just put it together just within my own notebooks. And then I started thinking, and I raised my girls in church, but they were getting ready to go off to college. And I thought, even though they're raised in church, they don't read the Bible very often, and I'm not dissing on my kids, but they just don't. It's hard to know where to go when you're struggling with something, to find it in the Bible, and to maybe look at that verse. Prayer is easy. You can pray on the go, but to find a verse. So I thought, maybe I should create this book for them. And on my teacher mode, it's alphabetized and color-coded too. But it didn't start out that way. It started out like this, actually. I just went, and it's still color-coded, it's on my pretty pages, right? I thought I need to give this to my girls. So that's how this started, with me creating this book right here and sending it off to college with my girls so that they would have a way and an easy reference book to go to if they were struggling. And that's where it started. And out of organic conversations over the years and friends really implanting seeds in my mind, they're like, this is such a great resource, you need to publish this. And this has been at least 14 years. And I'm just like, I'm not an author. I don't know how to publish a book. I don't know anything about it. So I started having a ladies' Bible study in my home in the subdivision in which I live in. And just out of organic conversations in that Bible study, they were like, I would love a copy of this. I want a copy. And over the years, as people wanted copies, I would just go to Office Max. There's my plug for Office Max. I'd go to Office Max and just continue to make this same book over and over and over again. I didn't have any more. So I was at a crossroads this last January, just a few months ago, in which the ladies in the Bible study that I have were really wanting and desiring this book. And so I was like, okay, I'm at a crossroads here. I can either do what I've always done and go to Office Max and do this, or I can try to figure out this publishing thing in my mind, this thing. I don't know what this publishing thing is. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. I felt led and to figure it out. So the first thing I had to do is come up with a title, right? And then I defined a graphic designer. And so the graphic designer that I found, his name is Brett McGuire, and he's amazing. And so he put this book together for me, and he and I partnered in it. And you can see it has illustrations. That just happens to be the topic on anger. There's other topics about peace and how to mourn a loss, something just how to mourn in general, and just how to have friendships, how to have relationships, how to bond your marriage. Those are some of the just the brief topics that are in this book. So he and I got together, and I just self-published this book. We got together and we published it in about 4, 5, 6 weeks tops. Then I added some more sections. I added some summarizing of each section. Still had the same version I had before. And then we had the book up and running and up on Amazon within about 6 weeks. The 1st of March is when we had it ready to go for people to purchase. And
so look at you. You figure out to write a book just to help your daughters. And then all of a sudden, now you're a published author on Amazon. Look at you.
In about 6 weeks. You're so sweet.
Right. And you've touched on the topics that people struggle with all the day. I noticed you said relationships, anger, peace, and all of that. So yeah, that's something that we all struggle with because you do sometimes feel anger. Now, how thick is this book? How many pages do you have?
About 110 pages.
See, that's amazing. So this is an amazing way, for so many of my listeners who are trying to figure out, hey, you know what, I want to write a book. So what are you waiting for is what I'm going to say to them. And is that your advice too?
It is. And I know sometimes it's all about timing, right? It's all about timing. And so, find the time to do it. But if that is a passion that's been put inside you, follow through with it. And it took me, a lot of years to finally follow through with it as well. But yes, I would definitely recommend doing it because here, can I share my next little project? So next I'm writing this book. This is Abigail's Ark Adventure, but I'm gonna call it Abigail's Adventures because it's gonna be a series. And this Abigail's Ark Adventure is the first book in the series. This is just a paper copy of the front cover, but it is getting ready to launch the 1st of December. And I was self-publishing this one as well. However, I did it a couple weeks ago, decided to go with a publishing company, and Eric Reed, and he's been amazing. And the illustrator for this book is Sean Williams. I have to give a plug to all these amazing people that, for my opinion, that God has put in my life to partner with, because Sean is an amazing illustrator and he's done such a fabulous job, and Eric's been such a great guidance in this process too. And I just felt like this was going to be a bigger niche, if you will, and I needed a little bit more professional help in getting this rolling than I did maybe through this one. So
yeah, Eric is a friend of mine as well. We come back, we followed, we come from the same certifications we did together. So yeah, I know what he's doing, and he's just grown in his business. Is awesome. But here's my thing: is why are you writing children's book, and what is this? What is the theme of these books?
Okay, great question. Thank you so much for asking that as well. This first themed book is going to be about listening and following directions. And the reason why I'm writing this is also faith-based, as well as God's graceful guidance obviously is as well. My mission and passion is to inspire faith and transform lives. And part of that is working with parents to help them work with their children. So on faith-based stories. So what I'm doing is with this book, I keep holding it up, sorry, just didn't get that visual. It's called Abigail's Ark Adventure. So each story is going to be a modern-day story that kids and families can relate to, that they're having struggles with in this day and age, like listening and following directions. But I'm going to partner this story with a Bible story. So this one partners with Noah's Ark, but the lesson's still the same. I don't get into total depth of Noah's Ark story, but I touch on it enough to where we can bridge that gap about how Noah listened to God's directions and stayed safe because he listened and followed them. Whereas and children need to do the same. They need to listen and follow directions in order for them to stay safe, because usually parents' rules are there to keep them safe, right? Parents and teachers aren't trying to be fun suckers. We're trying to help you and keep you safe. So our rules are there for guidance. And so that's what these books are going to be about, and that's what this first book's going to be about. And the next one is, I think, I'm spilling my beans a little bit here before I'm getting ahead of myself probably a little bit, but my second book, I believe, is going to be all about kindness, because I think we need that in the world too, and children need to learn that. And so what I'm trying to achieve is helping parents have those conversations with their children, and not just parents, caregivers alike. Grandparents are raising kids this day and age, their grandkids. We have guardians raising children this day and age, and as well as educators. And I'm also creating a whole curriculum to go for educators, homeschool families, and or teachers, and it's going to be private schools because the public schools won't accept this since it's faith-based. I'm putting a whole curriculum together that they can use to go with the book that are just the simple curriculum skills that we need to have in our education system. So the curriculum isn't going to be necessarily faith-based, it's going to be just skills that we need to learn.
And so how long is it taking you to write each book?
This book, and I've changed along the way, but I started writing this book probably in March, April, somewhere in there, and I had it written. It didn't take me a whole long time to write it, but again, I changed and add to it as I went along, but to get the basics. And then I hired the illustrator in May to start illustrating it, and we've just been working through that process. So I don't know. It took me, I don't know. It took me probably about a month maybe, but I've been tweaking it along. Like I just tweaked it the other day. I just added some different things. Since we're not ready to publish, I'm still thinking of things and changing things and adding things, and so I just did that the other day. So.
Well, as a published author, you always want to go have the first edition, the second edition, and you keep adding stuff as you grow. But this is an amazing thing. So my question to you is for the listeners, what are you thinking when you start writing a book? Do you start writing things in a notebook, or how do you get your ideas, and how do you put your thoughts together?
I start with a Google Doc. I'm a Google girl, if you will, and so I know with Eric, since you know Eric, he had me transfer everything to Word because that's best for the publishing world. But for me, starting out, I just start with a Google Doc. So I don't really do notebooks, and I just brainstorm ideas. And my husband will tell you, sometimes I have sleepless nights because my brain won't shut off from the creativity mode. And I used to do that as a teacher as well. When I was planning a lesson for my students, I would just couldn't shut my brain off, and I'd get up in the middle of the night and write things down on a piece of paper so that the next morning when I did finally awake, I could remember what I wrote down, and then I would go, to my organized folders that I have. So I do that as well. In the middle of the night, write things down on a piece of paper. Or if I'm in somewhere where I can't get to my computer, I'll write it down, or I'll put a memo on my phone and just dictate, okay, say this. And then when I get home and get to my computer, then I can add that into the book. And so that's part of my process in writing the book and creating it.
So there's a book in every one of us. What advice do you have for people who want to write a book but haven't yet started?
Oh my goodness, just like we said, you just have to start and take baby steps. Start the very first step. Like when I was first creating this book, first step I had to think of was, okay, I knew I wanted to do the resource book because I already had all the material for it. So think of your topic, right? And then think, okay, what do I want to call it? Just take one step at a time. And I'm giving you that advice and your listeners that advice when sometimes I don't even take my own advice because it's like, I see the big picture, I'm going to do it all at one time. And I have to stop and breathe and remind myself, no, just take one step at a time. My husband always says, eat the elephant one bite at a time, is that little phrase that people say. So I think that's my best advice, is to get started, start somewhere, start small, and just take one step at a time and just see what time-wise you have to do more in the day or the week or, just in your process.
I love this. I appreciate it. As a published author myself, my first book came out in COVID, right? Pandemic. And when I was writing the book, I was just so inundated with all of the things. One, I was alone in the house. I just lost my husband. And so I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was just, what do I do? And then all of these ideas came rushing in, and all I did was write my first book. And this first book was The Philosophies of Niche, right? And it's just a basic idea of how people can take the niche and just dismantle the whole word and then figure out what they can do with each letter. And it came out good. I didn't make I haven't made the best listing, but best Amazon best sellers list. But it has allowed me to. It's a calling card for myself and for my business, because it allows me to talk to people. And as an author, it also builds your authority. Like my friend says, you cannot be an authority without being an author. So that's what his thing is, because he teaches people how to put together books, and he does it very well in few hours. In fact, we just finished a challenge, and I just published my newest book a few hours ago. So then you're right. So that's like my sixth book. But the challenge is, what is it that you want to write about? And I know Tanya is going to support me in this, and I'm sharing this with everybody. If you have an idea, just put it down on paper. It's like doodling. When you start putting things on paper, if you just take a pencil and start doodling, you never know what the design is going to be. And twice before, when I started writing a book, thinking I was going to write on one path, but the words that poured out took another trajectory, right? So like you, as you add more stuff, it keeps changing. So this is such a wonderful conversation, because now I think we are going to motivate other people to write books. Let me ask you another thing. I have grandkids too. And being the devil's advocate that I am, I'm going to say there are thousands of books. If you go to the libraries, not only one libraries, but if you go to several different libraries, there are thousands of children's books.
Right.
How does your book stand out? And why would you want that? Why would you write? I've had other people say to me, why do you want to write one more book and add to the world? So give me your thoughts on that.
Okay. Well, I feel like a couple of things. Physically, my book's going to stand out because I'm doing it landscape versus vertical, right? I'm going to do it horizontal, which is a rare thing in some children's books. So physically, it's actually going to literally stand out because it's going to be positioned differently on the shelf. So that's one of the physical aspects of the book that I'm promoting as far as being different. The main difference is the topics that I'm going to be addressing. Now, not just the topics, because there's lots of books out there and lots of great authors that have written great books about kindness and friendship and patience and taking turns and teamwork and collaboration and all the character qualities that I'm also going to be addressing in these books. So then, it makes you want to be nervous. Like you said, why would I do another character type book for children when there's so many already out there? And so the difference that I feel that my book is going to have compared to the other ones is it is faith-based, and it does connect to a Bible story. And I did some research, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that has the same idea and concept, but I have yet to find it, as well as adding in the book itself. I told you I'm writing a whole curriculum to go with it. It's a side curriculum. It's a different part of the book, but in the book itself. So when you order the book, I'm also adding three different sections of curriculum, if you will. It's not really curriculum, it's story starters though. It's engaging conversation that parents and guardians and caregivers and teachers can have with the students after they're done reading the book. So there's three different sections within the book you're going to get when you buy the book too. It's going to help facilitate those conversations and that deeper learning.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I don't mean to discourage people with my question. My question is not to discourage you, but I want you to think as the niche navigator is, one thing that I teach people is to stand out. So how do you stand out? And that's what I am alluding to, is that how does your book differentiate from others? And by all means, anybody listening out there, please don't think that I'm discouraging you, but add to it, because this is on you. There's 7.5 billion people on this world, and not everybody have read a lot of books. I often meet people who I've talked to, and one of the largest selection of books is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and there's thousands of people who haven't even heard of this book, and although it's changed many people's lives. So why haven't they heard of it? And I'm not saying that you should stay in the dark. It's like just some people just don't know. I didn't know for about 15 years ago. I didn't know that book even existed, but it's out there and it's changing people's lives even to this day, 100 years later. So I'm not saying don't put your ideas on paper. Just create it in such a way, because it makes a difference. My daughter also wrote a book about STEM and learning. She wrote a book with her company, and it was really amazing, because even though STEM is such a big thing in learning, she decided to put it together. It was a joint collaborative things with all of the engineers that came together. Engineers think differently. They don't think like teachers and authors, but they put it together. It was so amazing. It came together. But here's the thing, is like now they can take this book and encourage younger children to think in science language, so that it becomes this thing. So you have to figure out who you want to inspire with your book. Now, you could inspire one child, or you can inspire 20, right?
Right. And I love the point you just made, because that is so true. And I hope your audience hears that and takes that in, because what I want to say next adds on to that. And that is, even if this goes nowhere, even if the God's Crystal Guidance goes nowhere, Abigail's Arc Adventures goes nowhere, pie in the sky, I want it to go everywhere, right? That's pie in the sky. But even if it goes nowhere, I've done this for myself too, right? If you have a dream of authoring a book, go for it. And it, like you said, if you inspire one person, it's done its job, right? If you go into it thinking, I'm going to be a millionaire and make all these fames and fortunes, it's probably not going to happen. And if it does, great, right? But go into it knowing, I'm going to do this, even if for no one else, but for myself, because this is a dream I have. And that's what I would hope that your listeners can take hold of too. Do it for yourself. If for no one else, do it for yourself.
So you talk about millionaires. It's funny. I'm going to leave a question for all of the readers out there, anybody who knows this answer can just go ahead and share this information with us. We'd love to hear from you. If you know which book made the most money so that the author retired, go ahead and let us know, because there's one book out there that really changed the author's life. The books that you write are one for yourself. You want your message taken away from you. And they're so taken out of your head and put it on paper. Just do that, away from you in that sense. So you want to do that, put it on paper. And then the second thing you want to do is that you feel accomplished. So you have an authority, you stand up as an authority to whatever you are teaching. And that is the most important thing. So whatever your field is, even if it's a sewing book, if it's a cooking book, if it's a recipe book, there's thousands of there. Go into a bookstore, go into a library, there's so many books. Why did you pick the one that you picked? Ask yourself that. And that's the way other people are going to look at your books. Now, Tanya, how do people get in touch with you?
Oh, good question. Yes, I have an author speaker page and Facebook page. So if you want to look up Tanya Truster, and it's TonyaTruster, author speaker on Facebook. That's my main page, and I have a post that's pinned to the top of that page that gives you all the links to all the other social media platforms that I'm on. But the same name can also go to Instagram. I just created a YouTube channel like last week, and I don't even know what I'm doing with that yet. So I have that too, but subscribe, but there's not much on there. So Facebook and Instagram are the two, and it's just Tanya Truster, author speaker. And that would be a great way to get a hold of me, because my email is on the Facebook page. So you can email me, you can Facebook message me, do that same page. So that would be the great way to get a hold of me. And I would love to hear from you.
Thank you. This is so amazing. Thank you so much for being here. It's really a good interview. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think that bringing this kind of people on my show is amazing, give me a thumbs up. If you know that you're getting some value out of this, because it's just a story that we're talking about what we are doing. However, it's not just a story, we're sharing a lot of tips and tricks as well. You just have to find them. It's not hidden, but it's like finding the Waldo in the whole of thing. But in this episode today, we've shared how to write a book and take your first step to doing that. Put your ideas together and get it together. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're teaching you, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with another guest next week who is going to change and rock your world again. And have a good week. Until then, bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was my honor and pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Niche Navigator. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. Your support really helps us keep bringing you amazing content. For more updates and behind-the-scenes glimpses, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and all our other social platforms. The links are in the description below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you there. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.